What are we going to see today from one of these two teams that we haven't seen before?
Intelligence is knocking me out.
It's pretty good there.
Dynasty mode.
Dynasty mode.
Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Bison Video Blog, brought to you by Gate City Bank. With Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. North Dakota State back home to wrap up October. The next two games are at the Dome, and the Missouri State Bears come calling this weekend. Over my time covering this team, this has been almost a rubber stamp. Outside of 2010, the Bison could win. That's not the case now with Bobby Petrino taking over the helm of the Bears, who bring in a team that went to the playoffs last year, and they got some guys, Kolpak.
They got some guys, you know. Bobby Petrino comes, he's got that reputation of the FBS and the pro and the NFL, and I still think that carries a lot of weight. It obviously does with a lot of recruits and transfers. He's brought in, like, what did he bring in, 175 guys? I lost count here, but it's amazing.
There's 30-some-odd transfers on this roster right now.
And he did, and the position he brought in, and the most important, of course, is Jason Shelley at quarterback. It's something Illinois State needs to do. We saw that last weekend, and we've talked about it ad nauseum, I think, now, and it's obvious that Illinois State needs a quarterback. But Missouri State's needed a quarterback too, and they went to a recruit, they went to another transfer, that didn't work out. Now they've gone to another transfer, and this guy seems to be working out.
Completes 58% of his passes. Not going to blow anybody away there. 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. You'll see some of his video here. He can get out of the pocket, too, and move. He's got a really good arm. Matt Ed said that during the press conference. We spoke to him here earlier today. You'll see the highlights of the game against Indiana State from this weekend. He's able to do that, and this is going to be a tough guy to stop for the Bison defense on Saturday.
And we've always said the toughest quarterback on a Bison defense is a guy who's dual threat and can do both and can get out of the pocket and put you in some run-pass conflicts. Now, he's got a very good arm. He's got some good pedigree here. I mean, he's been around.
Utah and Utah State.
Yeah, and I guess you go around till you find somewhere where you fit. And again, the same way with Bobby Petrino. He wasn't satisfied with this quarterback situation, kept looking and looking. There's a perfect run pass. Now, that's a play that NDSU is going to have to deal with right there.
And this is a really intriguing team with 3 wide receivers, Xavier Lane, Jordan Murray, Tyrone Scott, who can get out in space and make some things happen. And this is a squad. You watched that first game of the season against Oklahoma State. They hung in there with Mike Gundy's team.
Yeah, it was a one-touchdown game. And anytime the Missouri State of old, that would have been 49.
That would have been a rubber stamp, like a 56-3 game. There's no doubt.
That would have been the Steckel years where they just...
Or the end of Terry Allen's tenure,
I'm doing a story on this program this week, Dom, and for years it's been this sleeping giant. I remember being down on the field before the game when Chris Kleinman was around, and he was saying how he knows of guys who would have taken over that job in a minute, because you have a lot of things there that you don't have in other valleys. It's a nice area. Springfield, Branson, Missouri is a nice area. You have a nice stadium. You go into that stadium, it's double-decker, and it feels a little big time. It's a very nice school. It's a state school. You got Mizzou, of course, is A1, but then Missouri State, and they're good in basketball. They have a beautiful basketball arena, and they're in the Missouri Valley for everything else. Just that football team was so far behind, and you made you wonder why. Why was it so far behind?
Well, especially considering the area. They're not far from St. Louis. They're not far from Memphis. They're not far from Arkansas. I mean, that is a...
You're going to Tennessee?
St. Louis, right. You can go into Kansas City. There is an area there where you can find guys, and now it's on Petrino, and he's done this. And for recruits that will see, well, Bobby Petrino was the guy who recruited Lamar Jackson to Louisville. He won the Heisman Trophy when Petrino was the head coach. There's a lot of connection there. There's serious swag in the recruiting room when you have him in there.
Bobby Petrino can recruit.
Yes.
There's no doubt. This guy's been around the block. He can recruit. Now, how long will he stay there?
That's the rubber. That's where the rubber hits the road on this.
So now we're seeing the coaching carousel start with, you talk about Ed Orgeron leaving. Well, somebody's going to fill a spot. It's going to leave maybe this open. It's starting already.
Washington State's likely going to have an opening later today.
USC.
USC's got an opening.
So the carousel has started, and you're going to see some people juggle spots. And maybe there's programs out there, and there is, that, Bobby Petrino maybe has a background that isn't perfect.
There's a ton of baggage there. There's no doubt.
But if you want to win, this guy can win.
I said 3 years when he got hired, so that would mean one more year after that. They made the postseason last year, first time they had done that in 30 seasons, and got dusted by UND in the opening round. I look at their back end too. Guy you'll see on Saturday, Montre Braswell, another transfer from Central Michigan. He came in. He single-handedly won the game for him last year in Vermillion against South Dakota. He's already got a pick 6. He's big on the return game as well. He's going to be one to watch on the defense for Missouri State.
They have 20 seniors, and Matt Ants pointed this out in the press conference. They have 20 seniors in there two deep. That's a lot of experience, and usually the mantra or the MO of Missouri State is you bring a bunch of guys in, then they leave, and then you end up with like 8 seniors because just nobody stays with the program. Right. No, they're a little more veteran, and they got some guys that have been around a while.
Meanwhile, on the Bison side of things, North Dakota State is still a bit beat up here. They believe Braden Thomas will be back into the lineup after he's missed the last couple of weeks with a bad elbow. And seeing, though, what Loshaka Rokes and Javier Darrett have done up front, the Bison youth at that spot is starting to show through.
Wow, talent. I mean, youth is one thing, but talent is another. Last week against Illinois State, the Bison looked like they were not missing 3 guys whatsoever on the D-line. You're out Wagee, you're out Braden Thomas, and who else is? Pierce.
Yep, Tony Pierce is out. Yep.
You're out 3 starting DNs essentially, and you never knew it. You had no idea. There's no way. They didn't get inside the 20. 29 is the farthest Illinois State reached.
And the scary spot, obviously, we talked about the Mostar twins we have all season. We should again, though. Those 2 young men now have interspersed both a defensive end and defensive tackle, and they are just, I think, scratching the surface of what they can do. These guys are going to be a pain for offensive lines for the next few years.
That's why Eli Mostar, 3 sacks, actually 3.5 sacks, total 3 in the first half. And he was living in the backfield of Illinois State and Bryce Jefferson. So you look at some of the highlights. Bryce Jefferson is literally more worried about looking for the Bison D lineman
than getting to his receiver. No doubt. One guy I want to mention, and we haven't talked a ton about him, is Michael Tutsi. The year he's having on the back end,
he's just tackle well.
He's just a torpedo flying in there. He did that again Saturday against Illinois State. He has just continued to raise his game because I didn't think he had a great spring, and he's having a sensational fall.
That's a great point because how many times have you seen him come up this year?
Just all the time.
And when he sticks guys down, he sticks them in their tracks. They don't move. I mean, he did that against Illinois State where there's one running back, I can't remember his name, but looked like he maybe had a little room. Tutsi, torpedoes is the perfect word for that. Tutsi, torpedoes there, and the guy... There's no yardage after contact. It was boom, and he almost went backwards.
It's funny, Matt Entz was asked about why the defense has been so much different in the spring, and he said it was a lot of things that had nothing to do with football. And I thought that was really illustrative of what, obviously, the challenges that they went through in the spring and how now that's translated here to the fall.
Well, there's so many things, and there's testing anxiety, so they test on a Wednesday, and the players are sitting around looking at their phone waiting for the results. Wondering if they're positive, wondering if they can play.
Wonder if the team's going to play. All right. They had 3 weeks where they sat around and did nothing.
That's just one example.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, to see the 180 this team has done, especially taking the football away, something I know you wrote about ad nauseum during the spring. 5 of the 6 games already they've got a takeaway so far this year.
This defense is right up there with the best at this point in the season. I don't know. I mean, name a better defense. It's right up there with those 13, 14,
right now
19.
It is. 2 of the last 3 games, the other team hasn't gotten into the red zone. I mean, that's just a fascinating stat. First time since 2012, a team doesn't get 100 yards in a Missouri Valley game. The last time that happened was the debacle at Howard Wood Field where the Bison beat South Dakota. I think it was 54-0 that day. Looking at a couple other games in the Valley this weekend. Illinois State at South Dakota. How about the Coyotes? You were all on them. They won on Saturday at Northern Iowa. Now 3-1 in the league. And the way things are shaping up, the last 2 games for USD is SDSU and NDSU. But they could be in a good position. They could get to 7 wins before then, Kolpak, and they're all set. I really believe that.
I think they're a playoff team.
I do too.
They're a playoff team. I think it's been a really incredible coaching job by Bob Nielsen. I wrote them off this year. You wrote them off.
We weren't alone.
Everybody wrote them off. How could they get that much better? But they have. They found a good quarterback in Carson Camp. Started as a true freshman in the spring. As like a lot of NDSU guys, has really developed his game. He's a quarterback that I know Brock Spack probably wishes he would have kept home. But they've been really good. And usually their problem is in the line of scrimmage areas.
They've been okay up front, too.
They handled Northern Iowa.
They're up 20 after 3 quarters at Northern Iowa. It's one thing if that game was in Vermillion. The game was in Cedar Falls. And now UNI's got to come back and play in Brookings. Is it over for UNI right now? Right now?
No, they got to beat South Dakota State.
Okay.
They beat South Dakota State. I think they're back in the playoff picture, but boy, right now they're going the wrong way on a one-way.
So right now you'd have SIU, NDSU, USD, Mo State, I would assume you'd have in.
4-2 overall. They got to finish it off, though.
Well, Mo State's next 4 games are going to tell the story for their season because they have the Bison this week. They get UND in Springfield, then Northern Iowa after that, and then SIU. That's the stretch for Missouri State. They got to go probably 2-2 if they want to make the playoffs out of that.
So that puts them at 6-4.
They have Dixie State as their final game. So they're going to win that one. If they don't win that one, they're not a playoff team anyway. But if they go 2-2 through that stretch, that gets them at 7-4. That should be enough to get them in.
I think you're right. A 7-4, but you still probably a first-round game.
I would imagine so. Yeah, they're playing in the opening weekend, but they're in the Missouri State back-to-back years of the postseason. We never have said that in the whole time we've been covering FCS football. So that alone would be a big deal. But it'll be really interesting to see. This Bears team's got some players. So, and like past years, we've seen Missouri State on the schedule. I don't think it's going to be a snoozer on Saturday. Should be a great week of coverage. Jeff will have you covered all week long at Inforum.com. We'll have stories on WDAY. And, of course, Bison Game Day is live at 10 a.m. Saturday on WDAY, leading you up to kickoff at 2:30 between the Bears and the Bison from Gate City Bank Field at the Fargo Dome. For Jeff Kolpak, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest Bison video blog brought to you by Gate City Bank.